We are the Buffalo Soldiers, the Alexander Madison chapter of Buffalo Soldiers, Kansas City, the 9th and 10th Horse Cavalry Association. And on my left is John J.R. Bruce, our president, and on my right is Donna Madison, our treasurer. John, or we call him J.R., Trooper Bruce is a decorated war hero with 3 Bronze Stars for valor in battle in Vietnam. Donna is the daughter of our founder. His name was James Madison, and he, along with James Alexander, started what is today the 9th and 10th Horse Cavalry Association with 21,000 members and 41 chapters, international as well. I'm George Pettigrew. I'm the Executive Vice President, and I am the great-grandson of Isaac Johnson, a private, who joined May 6, 1867, and became an original Buffalo Soldier.
Howdy, folks. Thanks for joining us today. Mighty happy to see you. I'm Private Isaac Johnson. I joined this Air Force May 6, 1867. Oh, I guess I got there before they were even called Buffalo Soldiers. Everybody just called us U.S. colored troops at that time. I was in the 38th Infantry Company K. We mustered at Jefferson Barracks, just outside St. Louis back then. And you know, if it hadn't been for United States Congress signing that act in 1866 on July 28th, not long ago, there would be no colored troops. But here we are now, out here in the West. We're going to protect all the settlers. We're going to take care of all the crime. We're going to develop that West and bring peace to the West so that people can live in harmony and posterity. Well, it was all good, but you know what? That ain't where it started. You see, even the Buffalo Soldiers was an experiment to some. Some believed, many didn't. Because how on earth was somebody going to go from being property or slave to being a soldier in just about 2 years' time? It was a long trip. It was a hard one to make. Oh, I guess it's about the longest trip any group's ever made in the United States, including those that came from over the ocean. Go from being a slave to being a soldier. Well, you see, it was back in October 1862 that actually all this started and gave rise to this experiment, if you want to call it that. Because that was the Battle of Island Mound. Oh, most folks think that the first time the U.S. colored troops engaged in the Civil War was out there in South Carolina with the Massachusetts 54th. Well, tell you, that just ain't true. First time U.S. colored troops ever engaged in that Civil War against Confederate forces was in Missouri. That's right. It was just west of Butler, Bates County. And nowadays they call that the Battle of Island Mound. Well, the Battle of Island Mound was kind of unique because they had raised 2 regiments of infantry, volunteers, all black, some runaway slaves, former slaves, and freedmen. But they got together and they were trained and they were uniformed and they were provided with weapons and they were actually molded into a fighting force, but untried. No one knew what they would do. Well, I guess you could call that an experiment. But then, of course, you had to have high hopes to even attempt something like that. Everybody wasn't happy to see colored folks running around with guns and ammunition and train how to use it in military maneuvers. But a lot of folks thought it was a failure even before it began. So what we had to do was march across that Missouri line out of Kansas. About 240 of us. We had some white officers. We even had a colored officer. We marched over there into Bates County, up at the Toothman Farm. And Miss Toothman was not happy to see all these black soldiers with the United States flag in front of them and rifles on their shoulder. That did not make her happy. It was the worst thing she could dream of. Why would this be? And then they marched right up to her front porch. Commander walked up, introduced himself, didn't tell all the plans, but he did let them know that they were there looking for those rebel guerrillas. They had been causing a whole lot of havoc up and down that 100-mile stretch from the Missouri River south along the border. Well, this was one of the hot spots. These guerrillas, if you're not familiar with them, these guys are some of the best horsemen, best fighters, most experienced, armed to the teeth. Whatever they needed for supplies, they took. So these guys were really so much better match for battle than were these 240 United States colored troops. These troopers didn't look good. So he asked Miss Toothman, Commander, he said, "Ma'am, we hear that they're in this area." And she said, "Yep." "You know where about?" She said, "Right down over that rise, you'll see Hog Island." Now, Hog Island was no little place. It's about a mile wide, and it was about 3 miles long, in between two streams. But that was their stronghold. So when the commander asked her, "Ma'am, about how many folks you think are down there?" She says, "Oh, maybe 500, maybe 700. Now, this is just me guessing, but I can imagine that by the time she told that commander, there may be 500 to 700 guerrillas down there, armed and mounted. He might have had a big lump in his throat, thought this was going to be not the best day of his career, and maybe even the end of his career. Nevertheless, he went back, told his troops to go ahead, set up camp. She wasn't happy having those black soldiers there. They were there for a purpose. Also, he knew that they were going to have to go ahead and find provisions because, of course, if you're infantry, that means you walk. You can't carry everything you need when you're walking. So they were going to have to scour the area and find out where there might be some provisions. Well, understand that there wasn't going to be much cooperation from Miss Toothman or anybody else, and I guess to add insult to injury, by having them take her place as a camp, they even went and named it, the soldiers. They called it Fort Africa. Fort Africa, not the Toothman Ranch. This must not have made her feel very good at all. Maybe them guys wasn't going to be very welcome either by anybody in that area. But they did follow orders, small group going out, looking to see what they could find for provisions. They were told by the commander, "Do not go over that ridge. If you do, you're out of sight. We don't need that. We're going to go and do some scouting, but don't get too far." Well, first time you've been out on an operation, and even some of the groups being led by sergeants and corporals that weren't quite as aware as they should have been at the time it was their first engagement, it did go a little too far. Went over the rise and got out of the sight of the Toothman Ranch. Well, that was a bad place to be, bad spot. And from that point on, you can say that things just wasn't going to break right. Not for the soldiers, so it seemed. Because you see those guerrillas, they had been doing scouting too. They saw these soldiers walking up that road. They knew they were at that Toothman Ranch. So what were they going to do? Well, as soon as those soldiers got across that rise and out of sight of the farmhouse, they attacked. The guerrillas came down riding hard, firing hard. And they were just going to wipe them out because these soldiers, don't forget, being untested, also on foot, against cavalry. A cavalry, I guess you could say, is about as most advanced fighter you had back then. This was early in the Civil War. Again, it was 1862, October. Hadn't been that much going on, especially out in that area. These guys had a mission. Well, they ran best as they could back to the top of that hill, turned, and formed two lines, one kneeling and one standing, rifles pointed at all of those horsemen that were chasing them. Still didn't look good. But on command, they opened fire. They took quite a few of them guerrillas out of that saddle, but still more rode right through the line, attacking, shooting, coming off their horses. There was one tale that fella was wounded. And before he died, the guy shot him. The gorilla jumped off his horse and went through his pockets and found a watch. Took the watch off of it. Another one of the colored soldiers saw that and didn't like it at all. So he broke off his fighting and attacked that gorilla before he could get back on that horse. And he killed him, took the watch back. Later on reported wasn't nobody gonna rob the bodies of these soldiers. No one. Well, the fight went on. Now, as all that firing started back and forth, back over at the fort, they could hear all this gunfire. So more troops came out in support. What happened was actually the ones that were under fire were aided by another group of soldiers that came up on the flank and started firing as well. Let's put some of the guerrillas in the crossfire. That's not a good spot to be. Well, after that fire took, then they started to ride off. Some of these soldiers were good shots. And as they tried to ride away, those guerrillas, they picking a few of them out of that saddle, still, as long as they could, because they had these long rifles. They weren't fighting with pistols, like most of the guerrillas were. They had rifles, so they could shoot quite a distance, and these guys were pretty good, some of them. Well, this kind of engagement was one that frightened everybody. And one 15-year-old boy remarked, "I didn't kill anybody, but I brought my rifle back." And that was a citizen over there in Butler, Missouri, that when Harper's Weekly interviewed him about what had happened, he said those colored troops fought like tigers. So I guess in a way we're pretty lucky we weren't called tiger soldiers. That's not good. But this is long, long before they were called buffalo soldiers. But again, it was the first test of black troops against any kind of Confederate forces. They were good. Those soldiers held up. They fought. They brought their wounded and their dead back. The funny thing happened was that being outnumbered at least 2-1, maybe even 3-1, it was just found that they were so quiet, scouting went out and found Hog Island empty. There's nobody there. They were all gone. Now, this went down as the first engagement between United States colored troops and any kind of Confederate forces. It just so happened, though, that word is could have been some of Quantrell's boys and some of Bloody Bill Anderson's boys could have been among those trained, highly experienced fighters. They were good at it. I don't know why they left, but they did. So Harper's Weekly carried the message back to the East Coast, all up and down the coast, that these boys had fought like tigers, and they were good at it. And they actually won that battle, which today is called the Battle of Island Mound. Well, the story goes that when this news got back to the East Coast, it got back to the White House too. And it set President Lincoln to thinking, these guys can fight. It's a lot of manpower we can use. And it led to more United States colored troops, USCTs, admitted into the forces of the Union. I'll tell you the truth, not well known about Butler, Missouri, or Island Mound, which is west of it. Not well known even today. But I'll tell you this, it is the first engagement, and it was a victory. As far as Massachusetts 54th, real famous boys off the East Coast. A couple of them even were sons of Frederick Douglass. Those guys engaged the Confederates, and they lost. So here in Missouri, first time black troops went up against any kind of Confederate forces, superior forces in number and training and in experience, and they won. That's the start. Black soldiers serving the United States. And sometimes folks wonder, well, how in the world did you turn out to be Buffalo Soldiers then, instead of maybe Tiger Soldiers? Story's an easy one. One is ridiculous. It says if you put on a buffalo robe, you look like a buffalo. That's not so. No man wearing buffalo robe is going to look like a 2,000-pound animal that can outrun a horse. And the worst part of any buffalo is when it's wounded or cornered. Oh, it's dangerous any way you go. But once you wound one or corner it, it comes out fighting. So it just leaves this for me to believe. Why would an enemy combatant, an enemy warrior, give a name of something that was very sacred to them? Would you give that only to the black troops? No one else ever was called a Buffalo Soldier. Not one. Well, I got to tell you this. My belief, and from what I find, is that it was based on character, not characteristic. Characteristic, as some stories say, would be the hair was woolly and they looked about the color of a buffalo. Well, you can take that if you want. But when you have someone that fights the spirit of a buffalo, then one warrior recognizes another good warrior. That's where I believe that name came from, even though the interpretation from the Native American was that of a buffalo, a wild buffalo. That's what they actually called it. And it was changed to Buffalo Soldier. Never was an official title, it was a nickname. Surprising more, they only lasted about 80 years. 85 years altogether for integration took away the Buffalo Soldier. Tell you what though, most important Buffalo Soldier you can think of is one that no one knew was there. It was a woman. You want to hear that story? Cathy Williams.
How you folks doing today? So good to be here and be able to talk to y'all and tell y'all about my story. My name Cathy Williams. I was born in Independence, Missouri in 1842. Johnson Farm. Lived there with my mama, her name Martha. And my papa, he ain't living with us 'cause he be a free man. He gotta run away and hide from them there slave catchers. Well, no, lots of stuff been going on about this Civil War. I ain't heard a lot about it till about 1859. This stuff get really heat up. Heat up so bad that the Federates and the Union soldiers, they be having a little scrimmage. Ain't nobody happy about something. I heard about the sympathizers They the ones that like the Federal peoples. And up there in Independence, the Union folks, they ran them all out. Don't know if my master liked the Federals, if he just be a fear. Lots of people be feared cause sometime if they just thinking that you's be on the side of them Federals, they run yous out. Sometimes they kills you and your families. Just some bad stuff. Next thing I know, my master, he moved down to Jeff City. Take all us with him. Except my mama. Her be free in 1860. That about the time we moved down there. Her stay in Long Jack, Missouri. And the rest of us keep going. We get down there in Jeff City and working on the farm and look up and what you see but them Union soldiers coming down the road. They stop down there where I be and they take me and they take some slaves and they take us with them and they tell us what they want us to do. Some of us be learned how to do the laundry and they tells me they wants me to do the cooking for the staff. I tells them I don't know nothing about no cooking cause they ain't learned me that. I work in the big house, but I ain't no cook. They say we gonna learn you how. Well, I learned how to do the cooking and I even do some laundry too for the soldiers. And we gets on down in Arkansas. And I gets to see this here battle called Pea Ridge. Bad battle. Bad, bad, bad. Don't like to talk. Just make my heart feel bad. I see soldiers come back from all that fighting. Some of them ain't even got an eye. Some of them done lose both their eyes. Some of them come back with an arm and a leg gone. Can't do nothing about it. Some of them, they be so bad that the surgeon, he cut off their leg. Well, I was gonna move on cause I don't like talking. We goes on down in Georgia, Macon and Savannah, and I sees them Union soldiers, they be burning up the fields and the crops and stuff. And I even see them sinking one of them there steamships out there in the river. Some of the people's dying them there ships. Then we moves on up around Virginia and Washington City, back over in the east part of the United States. And that when that General Sheridan, he come up from Shenandoah Valley and where he be raiding and stuff, and they make him commanding over the troops that I be with. Then we go up in Nebraska and come back down to Missouri. We get back in Missouri about 18 or 65, April. And I hear tell that Missouri done had a convention where they vote to everybody in the convention vote to free up all the slaves in Missouri. And that means when I gets back, I's free. I ain't no slave. Well, we be down there in Jefferson Barrack, and that's a talking about freed up slaves. What they gonna do? And I run into a friend and a cousin, and they tells me they done joined up in the army. I ain't know nothing about that, but they say that the Congress, they'll make this new thing saying all the colors to join up in the army, they can do that. So my friend and my cousin say, Cathy, what you gonna do? You can't go back to the farm. Yeah, I kind of know that. But I kind of thinking that maybe if they's there, maybe they take me back. My friend, my cousin say you need to come on join up with us so you get paid some money. That sounds like a good thing to do, but I ain't no man. They say, we know you ain't no man, but you look like a man. They ain't making me feel too good for them to tell me that I looking like a man. And I be a little bit mad with them for saying that to me. They say, what you gonna do about it? Ain't no fighting. But I could have beat them down. I could. Make me feel mighty bad be calling me a man. They know I ain't. But when they say I need to think about what I was going to do with my life, I don't know. And I guess if I could fool the recruiters, maybe I could hang out with the soldiers and get paid, get some clothes and stuff. Well, when I keep a mulling over in my mind, I figure that I tried out. So I goes to after I put on my breeches. Can't that's all. So when I goes to the they ask me some questions. I answers the bestest I knows how. They wants to know my name. I tell my name William Cathy. I ain't supposed to be. Woman's got to have a man's name. They take that, say, okay. Then they find out that I was 5 feet tall and 125 pounds. I don't know what that got to do with anything, but it's okay. I know that now they know. And they give me a uniform. Now that's big. That's big. Yeah, that make me feel mighty proud. Cause when they give me that uniform and I put all my stuff, I look just like them there soldiers. Yeah, if just kind of look over here a little bit. I show you my uniform. That's it. See, this here. This my coat. I was proud of my coat. Got these here gold buttons on it. And look here. These my black. Goes out there in the dark. and you got stuff to do, wants to know where you go. And look here, here's my canteen with my water. That's to have water. Can't be out there in the wilderness with no water. And this here right here. This here be my knapsack. Got all my cooking stuff in there. I need to cook so I can eat. Just through using my gun on them there rabbits and stuff out there. Got to shoot your food sometime. And see this rabbit here. This here. This is my backpack down here, and this is here my blanket. I need all that stuff. That stuff be the things I need so I can survive. See, be my hat. My hat. And that's for the infantry. Yeah, they put me in the 38 infantry, company A. Yeah, United States Army. Cathy William Cathy. In one. I feel so good when I get all my stuff. March. I learned how to do guard duty. And I tell you, this here stuff I be carrying with me. All that stuff together. That stuff weighs 70 to 75 pounds. And we be marching 12 to 15 miles a day. That break Cathy down. Hard for a man. Ain't good for no lady. Oh, Cathy get in bad shape. March from Fort Riley all the way down to Fort Bend, New Mexico. Bees down there, we do some more marching. Folk coming, folk Union, they're all around and back down to Fort Bend. Yeah, Cathy done be so sick so many times that I benefits. So we're gonna have to figure out something else. And I know one thing, I'm just tired. And I won't get up. So I get sick again, and I just let them find out that I ain't no man. When they find out I ain't no man, they put me out the army. But I hangs around, and I work for my commanding officer's family. Get paid anyhow. When I gets enough money, I'll move on up to Colorado, to Puebla, and I work in the laundry with the orphanages, or them little childrens there. Step close and stuff. Stay there about 2 years. And I even find me a husband. Get hitched up. Thinking I'm gonna have the life that I be seeing other folks. Women's and they's husbands and children have a family. Eh, that rascal. He ain't no good. Ain't no count for nothing. He steal my wagon, my mule, my gun, steal my watch, and they take $100 for me. I know how to use this here rifle. I ain't that type of people. I puts him in jail. The sheriff arrests him, and he probably still there, 'cause that's where I live. I go down to Trinidad, Missouri. No, not Missouri, Trinidad, Colorado. That's where I go. I go down there, and I meet some good folks. They treat me good. I get a job in the laundry on Commercial Street. Work there, and I even work for some of the peoples in town. They knows me real good and treats me good. And one day I get sick and I be out there, just ain't in good shape. Oh, and they put a little thing in the paper saying Cathy in bad shape. Need a little help, so they come and they help me out, 'cause I ain't got no wood for the fires in the stove. I ain't got no food. Just in bad shape. Done been in the hospital for 30 days. Then I come out and I just in bad shape. I tell you, they tells me to go get a pension on me. So I finds me a lawyer, and he ain't charging, but he write up for me. And when they file for the pension, they find out that Cathy and Will is the same peoples. Well, they know that, so they put me out. So when it gets done, they makes a they have they have a little meeting. A little meeting with the board. And the board, they gotta make a decision about what they go. The doctor say he wanna give me a third grade pension. When the board get through going over the paperwork stuff, they say things ain't just ain't working out. I don't know what they say, but it ain't what they say it's supposed to. So they say I can't have no pension. And that be at 18 and 2 by April. And they give me official stuff saying pension. Well, I ain't got much go on then, and all I can hit on the folks in town, family and relatives and friends. Do the best as I can do. And then I got these here creatures, 'cause when they do my physical, they find out that Cathy ain't got got a toe on one feet and a toe on the other. So trying to work with these here creatures ain't an easy thing to do. And Well, just get full.
Hello.
Real.
We're here today to tell you a little bit brief history about the Buffalo Soldiers, where they came from, what did they achieve through the Western frontier up through Korean War. As you know, the 9th Cavalry was created in Greenville, Louisiana. 10th Cavalry was created in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. They rode the Western frontier for over 30 continuous years with no broken service. The 9th Cavalry Indian Wars ended in 1890. 10th Cavalry ended in 1886. So what was their job after the Indian Wars officially over? Their job was patrol borders. For years, they patrolled the Mexican border. They went into the Mexican community until 1898 when they summoned to Cuba alongside Teddy Roosevelt in 1898 and his famous Rough Rider. The 9th and 10th Cavalry and the 24th and 25th Infantry stayed over for approximately 1 year. At the end of 1899 was the end of the Spanish-American War for the Afro-American troops, 24th Infantry, and the 9th Cavalry was summoned to California. There, the infantry became mounted, and the 9th Cavalry was already mounted. But while in Cuba, what they did, it rained so hard over there that they had to redesign the Stetson hat that you see to the left of me, your right. This is the hat that they redesigned. Some of it call it a lemon squeeze because of what this looks like. Some call it a Montana pink. Some call it Montana pinch. Some even call it the campaign hat. But we know it as an icon hat of Smokey the Bear. The 9th Cavalry brought this hat back, like I said, in the 24-inch. This hat was officially went into Park Service in 1911, became the first official park ranger hat. 1960, the Buffalo Soldiers were dubbed official park ranger. Also during that time in 1916, they had an Afro-American superintendent, Charles Young, which was a captain. What happened after that? Well, World War I came in. World War I came in, the 9th Cavalry and the 10th never fought as a regiment. Never fought. But in the midst of that, they designed another division. The 92nd Division and the 93rd. 92nd had the official Buffalo Division pack, running Buffalo. The 93rd had the blue helmet. But what's so different about the World War I was that the United States Army, the 92nd and 93rd, they fought under the French flag with American uniform. After that, World War II came in. Again, they was in trouble. 9th to 10th never fought as a regiment. They went overseas, and they extracted different units from the Buffalo Soldiers, especially the 9th to 10th Cavalry, which is a grandfather. They extracted the Red Ball Express. Now, who are the Red Ball Express? Well, they are soldiers that took the dangerous job and delivered ammo on the front line. They were all Afro-American. That was their job. Sometimes they beat the tanks up. It was a very, very dangerous job. Also came out of there was the Triple Nickel. Now, who are the Triple Nickel, which they organized in World War II? Well, they were parachute. But the United States military said that to be a paratrooper, you had to jump out of an airplane into open terrain. Now, the Triple Nickel had to jump in the forest fire. Now, that's the only thing different between paratrooper and a smoke jumper. They was called smoke jumper. But to me, in my own opinion, they still paratroopers. Also came out of there was another famous group. You heard about them. We call them Buffalo Soldiers of the Sky, the Tuskegee Airmen, who trained at Tuskegee, Alabama. They also flew up under them. They went over to North Africa. That's where they trained pilots. If you know a little bit about the Tuskegee Airmen, they flew the famous B-51D model Mustang. This Mustang is considered best weapon today in the air, even versus the new jets, as a F-22 Raptor, the F-18 Hornet, the F-4 Phantom, the F-11, the F-16, the F-15. This B-51 Mustang is a number one fighting machine. The reason why it makes a number one fighting machine, because once over in Africa, where their job was to escort bombers, the 332nd Fighter Wing. They escorted bombers. It was already requested because their regular forces did not, their escort never showed up. So Tuskegee Airmen took this job of escorting all these bombers. But what's so great about these Tuskegee? They painted their tail red. That was distinguishing themselves. They painted their planes on the tails red. They called the red tails. Same as the name for the Buffalo Soldier. They was called the red tail. But something else happened. Roscoe Brown was the first Tuskegee Airman to shoot down 262. I know you want to know what a 262 is because they blew the P-51 Mustang. It's a jet. Nobody never seen these jets before. The German had these jets. And Roscoe Brown had to figure out how to shoot this jet down. So he was the first to shoot 262 jet down. Also, the Tuskegee Airmen had nurses. Can't forget about them. Their job was to take care of the pilots. They could not work on white pilots, any white soldier. Also came out of that group was another group that came out. The 320 tank, the 320 balloon battalion. Their job was to take these balloons and release them over the enemy line. People don't realize that D-Day, Buffalo Soldiers were doing D-Day, Omaha Beach. They was there. Nobody knew that. World War II brought a different scenario on the war because the 9th and 10th Cavalry was the grandfather, like I said, but they extracted all these other units out of there. 509 Tank Division, 510th Tank Division, the 671st. They extracted all of these units from the Buffalo Soldier in World War II because they sent the Buffalo Soldier, the 9th and 10th, into the 2nd Division. Now, Executive Order 9981 was signed by Harry S. Truman, one of the many executive orders he signed to integrate to integrate the military as a whole. 1952, it went into effect. But in 1944, there was still two more units. They was the 27th and 28th. They was also all Afro-American cavalry. They took them off the books. You don't hear too much about it. So when Executive Order 9981, like I said, went in effect, in 1952, when it really took effect, and it integrate all military services. You know, the United States military dubbed the Native Indians as the #1 warrior. And the reason why that's done because the Native Americans was highly considered by American. I gotta stop that. The Native Americans are considered the #1 warriors today. Let me tell you the reason why. You know, they give them the name the Buffalo Soldier. That's an honor. Now, they're told an honor. If you look on TV or you see some of the movies that John Wayne put out, you see what these guys call the green. Got the green berets. They're supposed to be a fierce fighting unit. Well, originally these guys was all misfits. They did everything that was against the Geneva Convention until they got together and one of the officers went over and straightened them up. And it wasn't for John F. Kennedy who really organized what we call a Green Beret. But if you look on the sleeve of the the sleeve, they got a patch. It's an arrowhead. That represents the Native American Indians are your number one warriors today. They give the Native Americans their just due, just like the Native Americans gave the Buffalo Soldiers their dues. Now, in the middle of that patch, you got a sword. That means weapon. Then you got 3 lightning bolts. And the Green Beret put these 3 lightning bolts on there for a reason. What they saying that we can infiltrate you from land, sea, air. That means they can fight.